In just a moment, I'm going to introduce you to one of Australia's most highly respected former police chiefs to expose a story that I think you will regard as madness. But before I do, let's talk about some principles here. I mean, what could possibly be wrong with having retired senior police officers visit secondary schools to talk to teenagers about the law and society's expectations that they obey it? Surely young people now more than ever need to know that if they drive dangerously, drink to excess, experiment with dangerous drugs, or fail to treat others with respect, that there are consequences, and that the consequences can be serious and that they can dog you for life. It's precisely because our young people need to know this that every state in Australia has a Police in Schools program, except of course the People's Republic of Victoria. Well, not only does Victoria have no Police in Schools program, but the Victorian Police Commissioner has just formally written to all school principals warning them against any involvement with a volunteer Police in Schools program that one of his predecessors started a few months ago. We know something's amiss with policing, don't we, in Victoria, when a Labor Premier's political chief of staff can go on to become the supposedly non-political Police Commissioner's chief of staff, and then, and I kid you not, become Assistant Commissioner for Gender Equality and Inclusion Command. That's right, there is such a position. Now, the man who wants to see teenagers getting some exposure to police and to society's expectations of them is former Chief Commissioner Kel Glare. Now, he's my guest. He's the man who's trying to get up a Police in Schools program despite the best efforts of the current Commissioner. Kel Glare joins me live in our Melbourne studio. Great to have you here tonight. I think this is a really important story, particularly in the state of Victoria, where there's been a lot of debate about crime and youth crime and gangs and other things in particular. What made you go to all the trouble in your retirement years of putting this program together, and how long have you had it on the ground in schools?
Well, we were just starting it on the ground at the moment, but we're actually starting with grades 3 and 4.
Right, to primary schools.
Because we need to get to the kids before they ever think about getting into trouble. Teach them that there are rules, there are laws, and why they should play by the rules and obey the laws, and what the consequences can be if they don't. Mm-hmm. So that basic grounding is required before we can move on to other topics. So, and we do that. We deal with drugs, domestic violence, bullying, all of those things, antisocial behaviour of every kind.
So you got into this because you looked around and saw the other states had a similar program, there was nothing in Victoria, and you felt there was a need?
Well, I started the program in 1989 that ran until 2006, until it was then abolished by the then Chief Commissioner. It was a very successful program. It was assessed by Monash University. A report released in 2004 said it was achieving very good things in the youth space in keeping young people away from crime. But it had management issues. In 2006, I understand the Chief Commissioner then, Christine Nixon, was told it wasn't being well managed, so she abolished the program.
What, she didn't ask someone to have a look into why it needed to be fixed up?
It made no effort, it seems, to fix the management problems, but simply abolished the program. And, of course, the program was being very successful. It was making an impact, and that was a very poor decision. And then 5 years ago, I got together with a man named Ivan Ray, who started the Blue Light Disco movement back in the 70s.
Yes, remember.
We were both disgusted that young people were not getting that opportunity to be turned away from crime at early stages. We predicted then there would be a crime tsunami, and lo and behold, what have we had with young people? A crime tsunami. We've never had more violent home invasions, violent random assaults, violent carjackings in the history of the state, and they're not abating. Mm-hmm. We decided that we would form an organisation to try and do some lobbying to see if we could change that. The Community Advocacy Alliance is the result. It's not just former police, there's a number of good solid citizens that are part of our board. We've worked on from there, and we got to the point where we tried to convince the Victoria Police to restart a Police in Schools program and be proactive. I don't think there's any understanding of the word.
Yes.
And we reached the point we thought, well, if we can't get the Victoria Police to do it, we need to do it ourselves. So we've signed up volunteers, and we're an entirely volunteer organisation. We're funded largely, almost entirely by board members, and certainly we'd like some donations because we do have costs, but we decided that we would introduce this program. We've contacted schools, we've signed schools up, we've trained the volunteers so they can present professionally.
Yes. And
we believe that we can have an impact.
So just let me go back there. When you were talking about the advocacy group, and I've had you on before when you were in the advocacy role specifically. You started the conversation with government about restarting this very successful program that Christine Nixon had closed down. Why do you think the government didn't agree to restart the program? You know, maybe fix some of the management niggles, so-called, from last time round, but why did they knock it on the head?
I think the government spent so long denying that there was a crime problem, and a lot of that early crime still was based on ethnically young Africans, and it's not about their race, it's not about their colour, it's about their behaviour.
And values.
But they,
that's
right, but they denied it for so long, they found it very difficult then to do an implement turn and say, look, now we've got it wrong, we need to do something about it, and they are still, I believe, in denial.
Weren't they compelled, though, looking at the examples of the other states now who have these sorts of programs, weren't they being shamed in some way that there was no program in Victoria?
I think it's impossible to shame politicians, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
it seems like to be anyway, because we've done our best to point out that they really need to be proactive, to get into crime prevention first. If we look across the ditch to New Zealand, Mike Bush, the Commissioner there, started 2012. He said immediately that their first priority would be crime prevention. They've had a 20% drop in crime. We've probably had a 40% increase in juvenile crime.
And one of the points that, you know, we were talking off air, Kel and I, that I think, so, you know, needs to be underscored, it's not trying just to divert young teens and youth from crime if they're headed in that direction, but it's also sending a clear message, particularly to migrant populations who may come from countries where they're perhaps scared of the police or unsure about what sort of matters you can take to the police. You're saying to them, if you're at the end of bullying, if you've been sexually assaulted or raped, or there's been a home invasion, the police is there to assist you. They're not there to, you know, in any way make your life more difficult. And I think that's also a cultural barrier that we need to cross.
We have, as part of our membership, Ivan Kolarik. Ivan was once involved with the Victoria Police, in fact for 26 years as ethnic advisor. He arrived in the country without a word of English. He understands better than most people what it's like to arrive somewhere with a fear of the police and with all of those cultural issues that, you know, coming from the country that he came from, which is in Czechoslovakia. So he's part of our board, and he gives us very able advice as to how we deal with those multicultural issues.
So how hard was it for you to reach out to former police officers and say, you know, join this group? Would you be interested in volunteering in schools?
People have come out of the woodwork once they know what we're about and what we're trying to achieve, and we've had quite a number of volunteers. We're getting more every day now that we've decided to introduce our Police Veterans in Schools program. And our program is actually put together by a former member of the police force who had 16 years service. He's got a Masters of Education and is now himself a primary school teacher. So we fit the school curriculum, we tick all the boxes, we're absolutely committed to doing the right thing. We all have our working with children clearances, mine's in the pipeline at the moment. And you know, we are not just dinosaurs, we are still members of the community, we still have mostly grandchildren at the age we are, but some with children still. I think we have an understanding of what young people are going through.
And what was the response when you went, you said you had to go out yourselves proactively and sign up schools? What was the response you got from school principals at the time?
Well, our first call went out at 8:30 at night, and the first phone call was 9:15 the following morning.
Really, that quick?
As quick as that.
Yeah.
And many teachers were involved, and particularly the more senior teachers now, were involved in the original Police in Schools program.
So what's prompted Graham Ashton? I mean, help me out here. Why on earth would Graham Ashton, when you've gone and done this, there's no government money, we know in the past the program has been a proven success according to Monash University, similar programs are right around the country, you've got a great response from principals and from retired police officers. Why on earth would he shoot out a letter like this saying have nothing to do with it? It wasn't just, his words were, not affiliated with Victoria Police, well that's clear, you're not at this stage, but that we do not support it. Why did he go that far?
I really don't know. I described it, and I'm not sure whether I can do that on television, but I described it as an act of bastardry, and there's no other term I can put to it.
Did he ring you before he shot out this letter?
No. And members of the force have been forbidden to have any contact or give us any assistance. I actually wrote to him last year and said that we just like a casual ad hoc arrangement with the local officer in charge of stations, so if we find problems in schools we can go to them. But he's forbidden anyone in the force, any serving member, to have anything to do with it.
And has there been any response from the government? Have they felt that he has gone too far?
Yes, absolutely total silence.
Really?
Really. And I find that disturbing. I mean, we can't get to talk to anyone in government. No one will talk to us. We've been hammering away for 5 years to try and get a breakthrough and someone to listen to us, because we've got some pretty talented people in our group, including commissioners from 2 other states.
I just find it extraordinary in a state like Victoria, when you look at the crime rate, you look at the youth crime in particular, you look at the issues in integrating a lot of different nationalities, where some of the crime, is significant, let's call it that, and it's the growth, alarming growth in violent crime, Kel, that worries me the most.
Well, we owe it to our young people. We can't keep ignoring this and say, oh, well, we'll deal with them once they're in trouble. We owe it to our young people to try and stop them getting into trouble in the first place. Mm-hmm. We have a tool that we can use. It's not the perfect tool, nothing ever is, but it could make a very substantial difference to the outcome for many young people. And it's been not only ignored, it's been hindered by the organisation that should be doing this. The CAA shouldn't be doing it, but we have to, because we can't get the Victoria Police to come up to the mark.
Well, you're a terrific man, Kel Blair. If there's anything I can do from here on in to assist you in any way, please let it be known. But this is not an issue I'm going to drop, and I'll keep it up. And I'm staggered that Victoria doesn't have a model that's in every other state.
Thank you, Peter.